Good morning, this is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Friday, May 22nd, 2026. It's just after 10:30. And we thought we were done with bills, but we're not. We have another bill. This one is related to transforming our career technical education system, which sounds momentous, but it's a start. So we have Beth St. James from Ledge Council. We have Chair Conlon here from House Education to help us out with anything else we need help with. So did we ever invite anybody from Commerce, or do we not need anybody from Commerce?
I didn't invite anyone.
Okay.
I think the bills.
Well, it hasn't changed a lot, but I have a text from Edie. So anyway, let's continue. Let's start on the bill and I'll get back to them.
Great, Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel. I'm going to share my screen. So we're going to start with, so this bill started in House Commerce, in your Commerce Committee, and then went to the Education Committee. So the bulk of the bill, or the body of the bill is the Commerce report.
Right.
When it came over from the Senate, it was just findings and intent language. And so Commerce and the Education Committee have kept section 1, which is findings, and section 2, which is intent, very similar. They've pared down some of the language that the Senate sent, but kept it very similar. Do you all have any interest in going over the findings or intent language? Okay, moving on to section 3.
Here.
Will take us to page 5. Section 3 was part of the Commerce Amendment, and the Education Committee did not make any changes to it, and it requires the Agency of Education on or before September 18th of this year, in collaboration with our career and technical directors and the Superintendents Association, to issue guidance on the following topics for our current CTE system in an effort to provide clarity to the field prior to a giant rule update that may eventually come once there is more education transformation to the underlying education system.
So this is kind of getting some baseline information.
Yes.
Okay.
I think there was a concern about requiring a rule amendment that may then have to be further amended depending on the larger education transformation piece. And so this is kind of a bridge to get the fields to the next phase. And so it would be clarity or guidance on certain definitions, credit standards and competency-based pathways, work-based learning sequencing aligned with OSHA standards and federal hazard orders, minimum safety space and equipment standards, data and reporting alignment with Perkins 5, which is federal funding, and explicit allowance for differentiated regional delivery models.
So a quick question here, and this is for Chair Marcotte, who just came in. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming down. This section you put in, your committee put in?
Yes.
And you're all comfortable that the Agency of Education has the capacity to do this by the date, by September?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Okay.
Section 4 is an update to the statute in Title 16 that delegates the rulemaking authority for CTE rules to the state board. This is an amendment. I'm on page 6, line 2, to that statute that requires those CTE rules to be, and any procedures to be reviewed not less than every 5 years and updated as necessary. Our current career and technical education rules have not been updated since, I want to say, the early 2000s, but there may even be a 1900 involved.
Last century.
Wow. Okay.
Nothing makes you feel better than a high school student testifying saying in the 1900s.
Yeah.
And they're referring to the 90s.
We won't tell you how old we all were in the 1990s. Our youngsters not here today, so we.
That was 30 years ago.
I know. Okay, I digress. Section 5, also added by your Commerce Committee, The education committee made one very small change and then a larger substantive change, and I will point those out when we get there. It requires a giant report back to you all by January 15th of 2027 from the Agency of Education regarding 4 kind of distinct topics. The first is, so page 6, line 14, in collaboration with the Standards Board, which is our teacher licensing body, excuse me, recommendations for CTE educator endorsement requirements that balance the need for increased access to CTE educators with industry experience and expertise, with the need for ensuring CTE educators are qualified to provide education in their specialty field without unintentionally creating additional barriers or complexity. So you've got these industry experts who are experts in their industry, but they also need to be licensed as teachers. And how do you balance the needs of both of those? And the recommendations need to include both recommendations for statutory changes and any changes to state board rules. The second on page 7 topic for this giant report back is a pre-enforcement intervention pathway that is responsible for, so if there is a conflict in the field in enforcement of career and technical education law or rules, right? Like, let's say someone is saying, I want access to this program, but it's not in my home district, and I think the law and the rules allow me access, and someone else says, I don't think they allow you access. Who's going to help mediate that disagreement? This is asking for the agency to make a recommendation for you all for a pre-enforcement intervention pathway that is responsible for supporting interpretation and implementation of CTE rules and statutes, providing early state mediation between CTE centers and sending districts. The Education Committee on line 4 changed that to read providing early stage mediation. There was some confusion over lowercase state versus uppercase state. And so we're just going to change the word to stage. Documenting patterns of noncompliance or systemic barriers and escalating unresolved or repeated issues for formal enforcement. So what's a recommendation for a process or a program? Who would be responsible for all of this? The third topic in this report is updates to the flexible pathways initiatives to alleviate statewide inconsistencies with how flexible pathways are accessed and how personalized learning plans are created, updated, and utilized, including recommendations for a statewide framework for career navigation, grade level competency standards for students in pre-K through grade 12 related to career exploration and planning that are designed to ensure that each student develops the knowledge, skills, and experiences necessary to graduate with a clear, actionable, and adaptable plan for career and education next steps, and evidence-informed educational resources, activities, and curricula that support opportunities for awareness and exploration of planning for career and education pathways, both in and out of the classroom setting. I'm on page 8 now. Recommendations for statewide professional development programming to help those folks in the education system who are working with students gain the knowledge and skills necessary to support students in developing those post-high school plans. Recommendations for a model career navigation policy that is integrated within a comprehensive system improvement efforts to strengthen pre-K through grade 12 academic proficiency, that establishes a framework for school districts to embed grade level competencies related to career exploration right in courses, and ensures that students engage in meaningful career education, exploration, and planning activities, and utilizes a process by which each student develops and updates their personalized learning plan that would serve as a primary tool for tracking both academic proficiency and evolving career interests. And then finally, related to career and technical, or related to flexible pathways, an analysis of data collection system capabilities and gaps related to flexible pathways, personalized learning plans, and college and career readiness. What data are we currently collecting? What data are we able to collect? Where are there gaps and what are the recommendations to you all?
Wayne and Tip.
It's not really maybe a question for you, but back on page 7, A(i), grade level competency standards for students in pre-kindergarten through grade 12 related career exploration and planning. What's the intent in pre-K, the real early stages? Because I can remember back to the 50s, back in the 50s when I was of that age, then the planning was probably not going to amount to much other than if you were getting your core competencies in reading, writing, and arithmetic, going to go through all of this. What's the intent here? Is it something more than what's self-apparent, or are we adding language that we just?
I think that's a question more for educational, someone who has like it might be a better question for your chairs, but I also think it's someone who has a much more grounded knowledge in education pedagogy and.
Maybe they could comment.
Yeah, sure. Chair Conlon, this is.
Well, this is part of the commerce language, so it might want that to be.
Yeah.
But I would just say, what this is asking for is to have the agency make recommendations for where sort of career pathway education will take place. It doesn't mean that they're gonna start it in pre-kindergarten, but to just, often when you're talking about statewide, competency standards, you always say pre-K to 12, because that's our statewide system.
So they have the full latitude, so you're not restricting or limiting their ability to recommend something within the whole age range.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've been hearing a lot that we need to make sure that students are introduced to career readiness, to career pathways at a very early age. And it doesn't mean that we're going to take these pre-kindergartners out and start putting them on construction equipment.
Legos are for.
But it's just getting them introduced to start thinking about what they might want to do with their life. And the earlier we start, the testimony that we've taken, the better off we are of having these students as they grow up, going through the system, want to explore other career areas.
While we're going down memory lane, I remember as a little kid playing outside and we played made up game, whatever, pretend games. I'm going to be a nurse, and it's like,
I
kids
started
do
out
it.
a little stone.
They just don't do it in school. So I didn't become a nurse. Go ahead, Tom.
Not on spreadsheets. It's called flexible pathways, right? And so I just want to ask a question philosophically about that. I mean, somebody in 8th grade, there's a number of people who, whether it's because their parents do this, that, or the other thing, that they get this idea that I'm going to be a mechanic or anything. But the flexibility of, and I didn't have any of these dreams about being a nurse or anything else. I've been pretty much applying slates since I was a kid, right? And so when everybody asks what I want to be, it'd be like, I don't know what that question means. But there are some people who say, I want to be a doctor or a nurse, but then they change. We only have control over them in the education system until they're 18 or so. Are there continued supports as people change their minds? Because it's one thing to say, hey, this person wants to be a mechanic, but we're going to put them into co-ed. And they find out that, oh my goodness, this isn't the place for me. Are there supports for the kids who change their minds or who find that they've done the exploration and this isn't the place for them? And then they want to go and do something else completely different. I don't know into the programs enough and how they've developed over the last 15 years to know where have we focused some of how have we evolved from STEM to get to a point where kids feel like even in high school, if they do change their minds, it's not wrong.
I don't know how flexible pathways are. when we put it in, we certainly intended for that to happen, so that students can take a look at something, try something out. If it doesn't work, then let's move over to something else. Let me try. It's about trying. That's what the flexibility is all about. Whether we're there or not yet, I don't know.
And maybe Peter has a.
I would say,
comment.
you say exactly what Mike said in different words, say it's about exposure. It's about exposing kids to pathways that they may not have imagined previously. And you give it, I'm sure, all the time. And I mean, the school system's really there to support them and, whatever ambition they have.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it strikes me as the program is fine capacity or the personality of a guidance counselor or a teacher of any, I mean, it's still the same as it always was. It all depends on whether or not it's no fault of anybody, but if somebody's more enthusiastic about this than somebody else, that program is more successful.
They're all connected with personalized learning things too, where we're really following behind on that.
And then Marty.
Well, Chair Marcotte and I talked about this in my past life, for years. I do think exposure is critical. I spent 2 decades working with girls and young women, to help them consider careers that they might never have considered. And almost none of them had had any kind of prior exposure to, forestry, to policing, to, CAD, all of those things, like if you haven't held the tool, and so I think this is a great start. I think that unless we make a very concerted effort to expose young people to the wide range of careers. I mean, we had, what was it, school to career, there was legislation in the early 2000s. School to work, that's right. And it was grants, it was money, and that helped fund some things, and it dried up. And we face incredible pressures in a number of fields. And if we don't try to attract non-traditional workers to those fields, we're never going to fill the gaps. And so I say this to you all, my colleagues who will still be here next year, that, I'll read the report when it comes out and track this progress. But I think it's essential to Vermont's economy, that you're doing what you're doing. And I thank you for your leadership in really recognizing the importance of technical education and trying to do something about it.
Marty.
I thought Tom's question was more about what about the adult that gets into something and decides he doesn't want to be a carpenter after all, or he doesn't want to be whatever. But resources are out there. And I think our Department of Labor has some resources available for aptitude testing, career guidance, that kind of stuff.
Retraining.
Retraining, but maybe just the investigation, maybe, getting the person to sit down and think, what do you really want to do? Where are your aptitudes? Where are your skills? And I think the Community College of Vermont has courses in that area for students who just, have been in a career and don't know if they really like it. And so there's kind of a survey course of, what do you look like out there? So I think there are opportunities for adults.
Yeah, and I'm not
gone through
questioning that.
school and done something and then said.
It's
"No,
more a matter
this
of
is
like
right."
not channeling kids down a path and not with no exit if they don't.
If you
decide they don't want to do that.
I'm just thinking of from it, it's more than philosophical. It's more like if you commit to something, if you made that decision, if you thought at a certain time in your life
That it was gonna be
that
right.
you were gonna be the right thing, that feeling of like, oh, I don't like this at all. It feels like you've run into a dead end and that restarting process, like, it's more of the mental game for the person who's going through this, because you think, did I make a wrong decision? Am I at fault? Did I, all of those things that make it hard, where ideally you want somebody to, put their hand on your shoulder and go, it's okay, let's start again, and I know that's more fictional or it's not necessarily, but that's what I'm just thinking. Sometimes the doors feel closed when you've hit a bottom and you're changing things, you feel like you're wrong.
I think as much as we can help kids to recognize that this everything could be an opportunity instead of being too closed.
And that doesn't have to be the education system. That
No,
could be
not at all.
or
Lots of
parents.
sort of a, yeah, John and then.
So I worked with a couple of our local high schools in their CT programs, teaching certification courses, and first aid and things like that, because it transcends into other areas of interest here, perhaps. Here as well, but I've had a chance to, so I worked with a lot of students who might be like ninth grade. They have to recertify a couple of years later. So I've had a chance to like see them a couple of years later, perhaps. And some of them stick with what they got into with whatever programs happening in those high school years there. But many of them do change because they get into a place and they might discover something very different and like, maybe this isn't the direction I want to go here. And they're quite flexible with getting students into something different here. So they don't they don't feel like they're like stuck in a pathway here for wherever it might be. And that's been a really positive thing about what I've seen happening over, my 10+ years working with those programs here. Yeah, that a little bit earlier here, the exposure part of it, that's best. So you can have some options, kind of be thinking about, even if they decide to try something, and this isn't fitting for what they really want to do.
Okay, Lynn?
Yeah, I think that their exposure is important, and I think a lot of times, and this is a problem more for Vermont rural places than it is for bigger cities, is that you don't know what you don't see. And so you have to make an effort to show them or expose them to things. But sitting on school board, listening to panels and counselors and even the guidance counselor in our elementary school, which lived on a very tight budget. Basically, we had a guidance counselor who did a parenting course with kids who were young. And basically, one of the things that he talked about was responsibility and accountability. You teach them to be responsible by giving them responsibility. And that's an important piece of whatever you're going to do when you go and continue with school or go into a job or you are responsible for something. Major parenting group out of the mental health agency, but it was a counselor from our elementary school. And everybody used the same logical consequences and the same philosophy. The teachers used it, the parents used it. Kids understood what it meant. You made a rule, you break the rule, you don't get punished, but there's a logical consequence and you have to enforce it. The other thing that we heard from business leaders in the high school, probably in the junior high as well, is that they would talk about the things that were most important for them, for their future employees, was to have them be able to read well, to have them be able to write well, no matter what you did, whether you were a carpenter or you were going to be an electrical engineer or whatever. You had to learn to read. You're going to be a waitress. If you were going to be anything, you had to learn to read, follow directions. You had to learn to write, communicate. And those are the skills that they really, really wanted. They didn't want to get into curriculum. They wanted to get into those basic things, basic math, basic arithmetic, so that they could go and understand directions. They could help other people. They could document what they did. So that was the basic issue.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement, and I'm going to move on. I have one question for Mike again, which is just capacity at the agency of ed or whoever wants to do. This
It
is a
has
big
been
one.
in our committee, that this long list of tasks that have been assigned,
Okay.
and they are enthusiastic about tackling.
Great. Okay, that's all I need to know. Let's continue on section 6. Thank you.
Great, we're actually going to stay on section 5 for a minute because the education committee added one more concept to this report back. And that is a report to you all on the adult diploma program participants' access to educational programs to best serve their needs, including CTE.
Okay.
This is the second instance of amendment in the House Education Report.
Yep.
That access needs to also comply with federal and state requirements for adult education, and make recommendations for how to fund such access.
Okay.
Switching back over to the Commerce Amendment, we're going to jump to section 6, page 9, line 4. Section 6 is a piece of intent language. The Education Committee did not change it to redefine comprehensive high school. Right now, comprehensive high school is a defined term in the CTE chapter in Title 16. I'll let the definition, which is on lines 5 through 8, speak for itself. Starting on line 8, the intent language is, as Vermont works to transform its CTE system to increase access, quality, and opportunity of CTE programming available to Vermont students, the concept of a comprehensive high school could be expanded to achieve these goals. It is the intent of the General Assembly to move toward a model of comprehensive high schools that would offer all opportunities available to students within the public education system, be defined as a public or independent school other than a CTE center that fully integrates the provision of CTE with the provision of general education in one school building or one school campus with a single budget for both CTE and general education. So I think you've heard various different terms, regional high schools, comprehensive high schools. This is meant to get at that same concept. Any recommendations to you all on how to achieve regional high schools, how to achieve more comprehensive high schools, or how to embed CTE within secondary schools? Needs to take into account that language I just walked through with your intent for what a comprehensive high school could and should look like. Or if you have a better idea, let's hear that too. On page 10, that's essentially what lines 1 through 4 say. Section 7 is an amendment to a section in chapter 37, which is your CTE chapter in Title 16 regarding credits and grades earned in career and technical education. One change that you'll notice throughout in this section is anywhere the term grade or credit appeared, we've added the term proficiencies, because Vermont uses a proficiency-based system. That's one change, and you'll see that peppered throughout. The other substantive change here is on page 11. Currently, school districts have the discretion. You can see if we jump back up to page 10, the school board of a high school from which the student wishes to graduate, so your home secondary school. Current law says shall make a determination as to whether the credits from CTE shall be applied toward graduation requirements. This changes it to a requirement for that school district to apply those credits or proficiencies earned in a CTE program toward graduation requirements. Section 8, and the Education Committee made no changes to Section 7. Section 8 in the Commerce draft is a legislative working group to come back to you all with not recommendations, with legislative language to transform Vermont's career and technical education. And then there is a whole host of directives of what that is supposed to include, but the Education Committee has struck this section.
Sorry, Chair Marcotte, but yeah, well, I think I already have to be on a couple of others besides the ones that I'm statutorily supposed to be on. Actually, John, you'd probably be on this one, but yeah. So
if we don't walk through that language, because education has
Right.
struck it, we would jump right to section 9 on page 15, which is the effective date, which is on passage, and education made no change to that.
that's the commerce one, and Beth has sort of walked us through the education piece as we went along. There's 3 instances. The idea of changing state to stage. A whole bit about the adult diploma program, and removing the work. Is everybody sort of clear on all of that? So there was money, that's why this came here, because there was a work group. But the answer has come to tell us there's no money. Is there anything else you need to tell us?
Joint fiscal office, no, Chair, I think that's correct. That's the money, which we estimated would have been a little over 13,000 for per diems. That's the primary reason we have a fiscal note, and while we're here, everything else is essentially what Beth has walked you through, and the impact is unclear as it depends on future rulemaking and recommendations, and if those recommendations are. So
we just saved $13,000.
Education committee, if I were.
Yeah, okay, right. To give credit where credit is due, but it's still a good idea for down the road.
Yeah.
To give credit to the Commerce. So everybody's happy. Okay, so how do we do this? We vote on the education amendment and then the Commerce bill?
Ooh, I think unfortunately you're asking the wrong person, which is silly because I'm your lawyer, but I'm not your parliamentarian.
How do we do it the other way around?
I think you may vote on the commerce.
The commerce bill and then the
As
amendment.
amended.
Yes, I think you're right, as we're both, yeah, that wasn't feeling like it was the right order. Yeah, I think we'll do that. And whatever, we'll get the both votes at any rate. So we're gonna vote on the bill and then we're gonna vote on the amendment to the bill. I think that makes sense in this case, because if we were offering an amendment, we'd vote on that first, but since we aren't offering an amendment, we'll vote on the commerce bill first. And may I say, it's nice to start to have some direction around CTEs. My entire 10 years here, we've talked about, what about CTEs? And it's very thorny, so it's really great to have some direction. I appreciate all the work you guys have done. Is there a motion to support draft 5.1 of S313? Tiff, Lynn? So this is the bill itself, and then we'll do the amendment to the bill. What were the votes coming out of your committees? 11-0? Same, okay, unanimous in both committees. Okay,
All of them.
what? I think we're gonna vote on both and then it'll cover everything.
I'm gonna send it to Nigel then.
Yeah, fine. We'll vote on the bill, we'll vote on the amendment, and Nigel can do whatever he needs to do. But I don't wanna lose a vote and us have to come back and do a straw poll because we missed something, so. We've moved on the bill before the education amendment, and one is Sarah, if you're ready to take the roll.
Representative Blumenthal.
Yes.
Representative Dickinson.
Yes.
Representative Feltes.
Yes.
Representative Kaczynska.
Yes.
Representative Roche.
Yes.
Representative Rowicki.
Yes.
Yes. Representative Squirrel, yes. Representative Stevens.
Yes.
Representative Jacoboni.
Yes.
Yes,
10-0-1.
okay, and a motion to support the Committee on Education amendment. Rain, John, great. John, Rain. All set.
Representative Blumenthal.
Yes.
Representative Dickinson.
Yes.
Representative Feltes.
Yes.
Representative Kaczynska.
Yes.
Representative Roche.
Yes.
Representative Rowicki.
Yes.
Representative Squirrel, yes. Representative Stevens.
Yes.
Representative Jacoboni.
Yes.
Yes. 0-1, and John, I think this one's yours. Great. Beth, thank you.
Welcome.
For coming. Thank you. Glad we're getting this out. Where you go? CD, thanks, Chair Conley.
My
And
guidance,
Ezra, thank you
my
for coming.
guidance counselor said I could never get into college.
I don't know, this may be our last bill. You guys aren't sending us anything at this point. Every time I say that, we get something, so I don't know. That's the last bill for now.